In this section, we'll be looking at communication and runtime security. Looking at communication security, once again, the Atom runtime pings the platform looking for instructions. Basically, it's asking, is there anything for me to do? The platform responds with no or a message about schedule updates, log data, or software release updates. This is a review of what we have already covered. All communication from the Atom to the data center uses TLS encryption. We support TLS version 1.0 and TLS version 1.2. SSL version 3.0 has been disabled due to the Poodle vulnerability. All outbound communication from the Atom to the data center is HTTPS port 443. The Atom uses a standard SSL handshake to authenticate with atom.boomi.com. If you have outbound firewall rules, you can search the reference guide for IP addresses if needed. Data processed on a local runtime will never flow through the Dell Boomi data center. It will be directly transported to the SaaS or on-premise application through the connector. The Atom does not transport any information to the platform without an explicit request by the Atomsphere user. It only transfers metadata. Information transmitted to the platform automatically by the Atom includes online status, tracking information, and integration process execution status. Information transmitted by the Atom to the platform upon request by an Atomsphere user would include logging information, error details, and connector browsing for specific connectors. No third-party software is installed with the Atom, so you don't have to worry about any free McAfee or Google Chrome slipping in. All installation and downloads are verified and authenticated by the Dell Boomi Data Center before deployment. Don't download it from anywhere but from our platform. The Atom is in continuous contact with the data center for tracking and status information back to the platform. All communication is initiated by the Atom to the data center. It is always a pull. There is never pushing of data from the data center to the Atom. When the Atom initiates the connection to the data center, it always authenticates the data center before sending data using an SSL handshake. Once again, all communications to and from the Atom and platform is encrypted. The Atom does write local files and logs, and the security on a local machine where a runtime is installed is the responsibility of the account owner. Data on the Atom is not encrypted. Security must be ensured by the infrastructure. Passwords are encrypted with an account level key. To protect your data, the Boomi Cloud Atom security is standards compliant with HIPAA, SAS 70 Type 2, and PCI Level 1. If you have services enablement on your account which is needed to host web services with your Atom or runtime, then there are additional security considerations. There are some design considerations. It could be web requests, SOAP, REST, or inbound AS2, or an MLLP listener. Your external load balancer can be configured to terminate SSL at the load balancer and pass to Boomi the HTTP only. Or you could just pass through directly to Boomi and let Boomi do the SSL handshake. You can also consider IP whitelisting. You should also consider firewall and port considerations. External requests must be routed to the local Atom server, and you must open your firewall for the load balancer to receive those requests. With regard for those inbound requests, you must choose which type of authentication per runtime. In our cloud, we require basic authentication, and I will cover the different authentication levels in the following slides. AS2 settings are set in the shared web settings just like the inbound web service, but much of the security is handled at the trading partner connector level. For basic authentication, each inbound web request must provide an account username and password or token, which is generated via the shared web server settings. The credentials are not provided in the HTTP header. It can be provided directly in the URL as a parameter named Boomi Auth. So you will see the credentials as base64 encoded as displayed here. Now, because it's only base64 encoded, we recommend you use SSL. And you can find more information about this in our reference guide. For client certificate authorization, instead of a user account token, the client can provide an SSL certificate. And we only accept basic authentication in our clouds. So to enable client certificate authentication for connection to your local Atoms shared web server, you need to select a private SSL certificate on the Basic tab in the Shared Web Server Settings dialog. For custom authorization, the API management feature must be enabled in your account, and then you have the option to use an external identity provider as an alternative to basic or client certificate authentication for connection to your single tenant Atom or Molecule shared web server. The custom authentication type allows you to authenticate using any JAAS, which is Java Authentication and Authorization Service, login module. MLLP listeners are used with Health Level 7 or HL7 type EDI. We are mostly concerned with the transport layer security. Release 1 is most commonly used with HL7 version 2.x, while Release 2 is typically used with HL7 version 3. If security is required, additional protocols or packaging can be layered on top of MLLP to achieve these goals. There's much more in the reference guide about MLLP that we don't have time to cover in this module. AS2 is applicability statement 2. These messages are always sent using the HTTP or HTTPS and usually use the post method. Regardless of the transport protocol, the data within the message is signed and encrypted independently. Messages may request a MDN or message disposition notification if all went well, but do not have to request such a message. That was all about inbound security, so let's touch upon outbound security as well. Each connector that you use has to maintain the security with that particular endpoint. Some types of connector level security are basic security. Most of our connectors support certificates. And there's also OAuth 1 and OAuth 2 for our HTTP connector. You can use Boomi to import an existing certificate from VeriSign or other authorities, and then use that certificate within your connectors. You can also use Boomi to create self-signed certificates. Some connectors may require the cert in the connection to ensure security, but others like FTPS or SFTP may require installing the cert in the runtime itself. I mentioned that you can take an existing cert or generate a key for self-signed cert from within Boomi. Certificate of Authority certs or CA certs must be manually imported into the runtime store by using the key tool utility. If you have the full certificate chain or created the certificates in Boomi, then you can create components in the Build tab and manage the component. Let's consider some data security. When you're in the cloud, this is what's accessible: process details, run logs, and environment configurations. And anyone who has platform login access has access to this data. For on-premise Atoms, the type of data that's available is user logs, compiled process data, and logged documents. The security for this is locally managed, and you can set up purge strategies if needed. For viewing documents, you have the ability through the user interface to view and download documents from previous executions in process reporting, so long as they have permissions. So with this tool, you can see documents that have been processed in the last 30 days. These are not resident on the platform, but are viewed from the Atom. Anyone that has this admin access privilege enabled on the platform has access to this information. When integrations are run in the Dell Boomi Cloud, we ensure HIPAA compliance and SOX compliance. The Dell Boomi Atom Cloud Security is standards compliant to HIPAA, SAS 70 Type 2, and PCI Level 1. Let's review some best practices. It's a great idea to have different users and permissions. Obviously, this depends on the number of AtomSphere users, but it's strongly recommended that you use security roles to access the data and folder permissions. If you have SSO, we recommend you use it with AtomSphere as well. We strongly recommend having a security review checklist and find additional information about security through our reference guide, community, or contact us directly.